parameters which are very particularly we would like to relate alpha, the void fraction, or 1 minus alpha, the in situ liquid hold up, with certain measurable parameters, so that using those relationships we can find out the non measurable quantities or the in situ quantities from the measurable quantities. Okay. Primarily we would be interested in trying to express either the void fraction or the in situ composition or the in situ velocities, or maybe the slip ratio or the relative velocity in terms of phase physical properties, conduit characteristics, maybe inlet volumetric fraction, inlet mass fraction if there is any heat transfer, and so on and so forth. So, in the last class I believe that we had almost completed our listing the basic definitions. So, what we had found is that more or less we had defined mass flow rate as W, and I had already told you that instead of only W in single phase flow, we come across W1, W2 and WTP also, the total two phase mixture, which has not been mentioned here, but I had told it to you in the last class. Then volume flow rate Q1, Q2. Please remember both the mass and the volume flow rates, they are extremely important whenever we try to characterize single phase flows. In this case also it is very important, but along with this the in situ volume composition and the in situ mass fraction, they are also equally important. So, therefore, first we had defined the mass flow rate. You are used to defining it as m dot, but in our case we are going to define it as W. Volume flow rate capital Q, mass flux which you have not come across much till date, but we will be using it quite frequently, particularly when the cross sectional area remains constant. Quite frequently we will be using it. It is just the total mass flow rate divided by the total cross sectional area, or the mass flow rate of any particular phase divided by the total cross sectional area. So, please remember G is an input quantity or it is a measurable parameter, because both W1 and W2 are input and A is the cross sectional area. Then of course, pipe diameter, it is fine cross sectional area, here it is just A is sufficient for single phase flow, but in this particular case we come across A1, A2, then the wetted perimeter, which I should say, that is S1, S2 and Si, the interfacial area, which is an added parameter which comes in this particular case. Interestingly, we found that we had rather the velocity was an input parameter there, and we defined velocity as the volume flow rate divided by the cross sectional area, or the mass flow rate W by rho A, you know all these things. Okay. But in this particular case, even for two phase flow situation, that means when we have just introduced one additional phase in the flow passage, we are in a position to define 4 different velocities, which I have already discussed in the last class. We found out that the common definition are the in situ velocities, which is Q1 by A1, Q2 by A2. Now, since A1 and A2 they are non-measurable parameters, they depend upon the phase physical property, the interfacial distribution, the conduit characteristics and so on and so forth. Therefore, these two parameters, they cannot be controlled by the experimenter or the designer. Therefore, they can at most be related to the in situ composition. Okay. So, therefore, just to define, because we are very much used to mention or to characterize a fluid with its velocity. Usually, although we usually measure flow rates, we are very comfortable in mentioning the velocity of fluids, 1 meter per second. Hardly we say it is 1 liter per minute, is not it? So, therefore, just to propose two particular convenient definitions of velocity, the definitions which can be treated as input parameters, we have defined two other velocities which we say as the superficial velocity. U1s and U2s that we have defined, it is slightly wrong. This A1s and A2s are incorrectly written, they should be A only. These are not correctly written, please note down the corrections. So, therefore, we have defined them as this entire thing, it is not correct, I am sorry about it, please correct it. This should be U1s equals to Q1 by A U2S equals to Q2 by A. These are not correct, so please keep them into mind. So, these are the actual definitions. So, therefore, whenever we refer to a fluid in two-phase flow, we usually, you will be finding in several journals, in textbooks, they mention the velocity of fluids. Please remember, the velocity they mention are the superficial velocities. Okay. We come across the superficial velocities. In situ velocities we find out only when there is a definite purpose for it, but for the purpose of characterizing a fluid, we would like to do it, or we do it conventionally by using the superficial velocity of the fluid. So, therefore, these two extra definitions had come up. Apart from the definitions which, and other than this, viscosity is referred to as mu, surface tension as sigma, volume as V. Okay, when it is a specific volume, it is small v, which is nothing but the 1 by rho. So, in this particular case, we have VTP, which is definitely not equal to 1 by rho TP. So, this I almost every class I mentioned just because it is so very important. Okay. So, therefore, and then we have we have got a mu, we have got a sigma, and usually when we refer to bubbles, then probably the bubble volume is referred to as VB, the bubble velocity is referred to as UB, and things like that. Okay. So, apart from these particular definitions which you have already come across, certain additional terms will be introduced just for defining the specific case when more than one fluid flows simultaneously through any particular conduit. Okay. These additional definitions, firstly it is the void fraction alpha, usually it is the volume fraction under steady state, not under steady state, when the void fraction or the in situ composition does not change with length under fully developed flow conditions. Usually the area fraction and the volume fraction, they are the same. So, therefore, in any particular way we can define it, but the actual definition alpha is that volume occupied by the lighter phase, or the volume fraction which is occupied by the lighter phase, it can be given as V2 by V1 plus V2. And as I had mentioned in the last class, it is HL or H2, whatever way you would like to, H1, H1, it is the hold up of the heavier phase, it is usually equal to 1 minus alpha. Okay, and I had already told you that alpha, the in situ fraction, it is not equal to the inlet volume fraction. So, therefore, again this is a non-measurable parameter, not under the control of the experimenter or the designer, but this is very much of a measurable parameter, and this beta, it is equal to the inlet volume fraction, which is naturally related to the volumetric flow rate, unlike alpha which is related to the in situ volume occupied by the two phases. Okay. So, beta in terms of volumetric flow rate, it will be Q2 by Q1 plus Q2. If you would like to mention, or if you would like to refer beta in terms of velocity, then how should we define beta in terms of velocity? Louder. V1 or U1? Alpha equals to V1 by alpha equals to V2 by V1 plus V2. Okay, it is the void fraction, or in the other words, it is the in situ gas fraction, and therefore, it is the, usually it refers to the lighter phase. Of course, when it is solid liquid, then under such circumstances usually we refer to solid loading as epsilon, unlike alpha. So, whenever we have solid loading, we refer to as epsilon. But tell me, if I would like to express beta in terms of velocity, how should I do it? Louder. Is it U2 or should it be U2S, the superficial velocity? Okay, because Q2 is nothing but U2SA by U1SA plus U2SA, and the A's they cancel out. So, therefore, beta can be related with the superficial velocities as well. Definitely it cannot be related to the in situ velocities. Okay. So, I had defined beta, and then I said particularly for condensation and boiling situations, the quality of flow also changes. That means, when the flow is flowing up, the total mass flow rate, which we can write it down as WTP equals to W1 plus W2, this is definitely constant. This is true both for heated as well as unheated cases. But in unheated cases, what happens? In unheated cases, W1 is also constant, W2 is also constant under adiabatic conditions. But when we are considering heated condition, then in that case WTP is constant, but W1 and W2 they change. Okay? And therefore, we find that throughout the channel we find that the quality or the mass fraction of the two phases, they keep on changing, and from thermodynamics we would like to refer to this mass fraction as quality of flow. Okay. So, therefore, we defined x in the last class. This was nothing but equal to W2 by W1 plus W2. But remember one thing, alpha is not a measurable quantity, but x is definitely a measurable quantity. It can be measured from heat transfer or heat balance equations or enthalpy balance equations. Okay. In the last class we had already mentioned that if we know the heat flux, if we know the amount of subcooling of the inlet liquid, we can find out x. And in other words, if both the liquid and the vapor are in equilibrium, under that circumstances also we can find out x. So, x is definitely not a non-measurable parameter, it is a measurable quantity, or it can be derived from measurable quantities, unlike alpha. Clear all of you? So, therefore, after this the other things which we had mentioned, the two other things which arise due to the basic characteristic of two phase flow, which distinguishes it from single phase flows. What distinguishes it from single phase flow? As I have already told you, it is just not the presence of two phases which makes a flow situation two phase. It is the slip between the two phases, or in other words, it arises because the interface is influenced by the motion of the two phases, the relative motion of the two phases. Okay? That is why we have two phase, this distinguishes two phase flow as compared to single phase flow situations. So, therefore, if there has to be a slip between the phases, then definitely we need something to quantify this slip. Usually, as I have mentioned yesterday, we have quantified slip by two quantities. One is the slip velocity or the relative velocity, and the slip ratio. Relative velocity, we have defined it as u21, which is nothing but equal to u2 minus u1, and this is the relative velocity and the slip ratio, which is nothing but u2 by u1, which is known as k. Okay. So, these two were the important parameters, and as we all know, see, these are interrelated. U2, U1, this difference, it arises due to the difference between alpha and beta. Okay. So, therefore, if we know k, we can find out alpha. If we know alpha, we can find out k. So, therefore, both of these parameters, they are dependent upon the mass flow rates, the properties of the two fluids, the geometry, and so on and so forth. It is just to show that none of them are measurable, none of them can be controlled. We can just estimate them, we can just evaluate them, but we have to include them in any sort of analysis we would like to do for two phase flow situations. Okay. Now, in the last class, I think I had discussed till this portion, and then I had told you that suppose see, if this is the situation, then we would definitely like to express either k or alpha, we would like to have a relationship between them. Okay, so that if we know one, we can find out the other, particularly if there is condensation or evaporation, then in that case we would like to have a relationship between say alpha x k and so on and so forth. So, whatever the relationships we have derived from now, please make sure that you are going to go through all those derivations, you are deriving them in your hostels today. You have to be very thorough with them before we proceed further. And remember one thing, whenever you are given to derive any particular quantity, to derive any particular relationship, please start from the basic definitions. Do not just assume anything, because the basic definitions are very important. Very frequently I find that students they tend to get confused whether G1 was W1 by A1 or W1 by A. So, these things are the basic. So, remember the basic definitions. Whenever you are asked to derive any quantity, start from the basic definition and then you proceed for the derivation. For example, suppose I would like to derive say K, okay, K in terms of in terms of say quality and such other things. What is K equals to? It is nothing but equal to U2 by U1, agreed. What is U2, can you tell me from the basic definitions? Q2 by A2. What is U1? Q1 by A1. Now, A1, A2 they are definitely not measurable. Okay. If there is condensation boiling, then in that case Q2, Q1 does not have much meaning. Under that circumstances W1, W2 are better. Okay, because at least if we know the quality, we know we can find out W1, W2, isn't it? So, therefore, what we would like to do, we would like to express Q2 as W2 by rho 2, okay, A2, and Q1 as W1 by rho 1 A1, right, or in other words W2 again we do not know, because W2 will be changing along the length. What we can find out from heat balance is the quality, isn't it? So, therefore, what we can do, instead of W2 we can write it down as Wx, okay, by rho 2. A2 also we do not know, we can write it down in terms of A alpha. Similarly, this can be written down in this particular way, okay, and therefore, we find what is K equal to, these things cancel out. So, K we find it is nothing but equal to x by 1 minus x, 1 minus alpha by alpha, rho 1 by rho 2. Rho 1, rho 2 are known, x is known. So, therefore, if alpha can be found out, K can be found out, or vice versa. Okay. This relationship, it is particularly very important to find slip during phase transition. This is a very important relationship. So, in this particular way I will be doing some further problems, you will be getting some assignments. In this particular way we can derive certain non-measurable quantities in terms of measurable quantities, agreed. And but please remember, whenever you are doing, you are supposed to start from the basic definition and then you are supposed to proceed in the way that I have done it. Okay, this is the way that you are supposed to do. Now, before I go to derive or rather define certain other properties which are very important, I would like to spend some time on the estimation or the definitions of void fraction and liquid holdup. Why? Because it is the basic quantity of two-phase flow. Just like mass flow rate, volume fraction is also very important. It is not necessary that under all operating conditions you will be in a position to measure the volume fraction. It may happen that because see, in the last class I had already explained, if you have to measure the total volume fraction, what you have to do, say the two-phase mixture is flowing through this particular pipe, you have to suddenly stop the flow here, let the volume separate out and then you have to measure. It is very evident that under practical situations in a huge plant you cannot afford doing this. So, very frequently it will not be possible for us to measure the, or else you can use something, some sort of a sensor or something which will cover the entire cross section and it will measure the volume across this section, but again this becomes intrusive, this will disturb the flow, isn't it? So, very frequently we find circumstances demand that we are not in a position to measure the volume fraction, maybe we are in a position to measure the area fraction. That means, the concentration across the area or the composition across any particular cross sectional area. It can happen that even measuring the area average void fraction is not possible. Under that condition, maybe we can measure it across a particular chord. Okay. Suppose this is the pipe cross section, either we can measure it across the entire cross section or maybe we can measure it across any particular chord, okay, so that we get the chordal average void fraction. So, before I proceed, I would like to spend some time on the different definitions of hold up, their mathematical expressions and just how to convert them into volume average void fraction, because that finally gives us the in situ composition. Okay. So, as I have already told you, the basic definition, it is definitely the volume average liquid hold up. Now, how do we define this volume average liquid hold up? Usually the way we define it, this is given as, mathematically we can derive, or rather we can express it in this particular term, it is integral V1 dV by integral V1 plus V2 dV, isn't it? This is the actual definition and this is the most useful definition or rather this is the most useful definition of hold up in industrial designs, and this gives us the overall composition of the flowing mixture. Now, when it is not possible to measure the volume average void fraction, the next which we try is the area average liquid hold up. When the flow it does not change with length, or in other words, when for this is the volume average value for the infinitesimal length of the test section, isn't it? When we consider infinitesimal length of the test section, then area average gives you the volume average, or in other words, when the volumetric average, when the hold up it does not vary with length of the conduit, that means under fully developed flow conditions, the area average gives you the volume average. So, we can measure either of them and we can use it for estimating or for expressing the in situ volume fraction. Okay. So, this can be written down as, this is better written down as volume and this can be written down as area, and the mathematical expression it is equal to dA A1 by integral dA A1 plus A2, or in other words this is nothing but A1 by A1 plus A2, where this is simply the cross sectional area. Okay. So, therefore, we would first try to measure either the volume average or the area average. Now, for measuring area average, the techniques are much more commonly available as compared to the volume average. What we can do across this particular cross section, we can measure the effective conductivity of the flowing mixture. Okay. We suppose it is a air water mixture, we know the conductivity of pure water, we know the effective conductivity of air, it is almost negligible. Now, if we can measure the effective conductivity of the two phase mixture inside this, then from there we might get one estimate of the area average void fraction. We can also use optical techniques for this particular purpose. But let me tell you one thing, it is not as easily done as said. And we at the end of this particular course, we will be spending some time on measurement techniques, then we will be going into the details of the measurement techniques, how we can use the conductivity technique for measuring these, how we can use the optical techniques, what are the problems and so on and so forth. because it is not as straightforward as I say that you just measure the effective conductivity, you know the conductivity of water, you know the conductivity of air, so that you can find it out. It is not so, because the relationship is not linear, it depends upon the distribution. Definitely the relationship between effective conductivity and void fraction that you would expect in bubbly flow cannot be same as the relationship between the two in annular flow. Is it clear to you? So, definitely the relationship between effective conductivity and void fraction will depend upon the flow distribution. Okay? Then finding out the effective conductivity is also not very straightforward. Therefore, area average also it is not very easily done. Okay? And as a result, apart from volume average and area average, the next definition which I would like to define is the caudal average void fraction or the caudal average liquid holdup. How do we define this? This is across a chord as I mentioned. So, therefore, this is integral L1 dl by integral L1 plus L2 dl, okay, and this is defined as HL caudal. Okay. Now, how do we measure this? Suppose we have say any particular radiation attenuation, maybe a gamma ray source or maybe any particular a beta ray source or maybe a optical source, a infrared source, whatever it is. So, therefore, if it sends a very narrow beam of light, okay, say maybe we have the source here and we have the detector just on the diametrically opposite portion. And if more or less along this particular chord we send the light, the optical beam or whatever it is, any particular very narrow beam across this. So, the amount which is attenuated or the amount which is absorbed, okay, that we can find out. We know the initial strength, we know the amount which is transmitted, both of them we can detect. So, from these two we can find out what is the effective composition. Okay, we know what is the amount which is transmitted when the channel is full of water. We know the amount which is transmitted when the channel is empty, in other words it is full of air. So, therefore, and we know the amount which is transmitted under the present circumstances. So, from there again with certain mathematical techniques etc., we can find out the amount which has been, or rather we can find out the amount of the light ray which has been transmitted, and it can be related to the void fraction. Okay. So, therefore, when the volume average and the area average are not possible, then we go for the caudal average void fraction, and it is usually converted to the area average values by two techniques. One is we can do extensive mathematical manipulations. Okay. We can convert this caudal average to the area average by extensive mathematics. This is one. The other thing which we can do is we can keep on measuring the void fraction across different chords, and then we can integrate the whole thing and we can find out the caudal average void fraction. So, we can use either by the use of multiple beams or by mathematical manipulation we can do it. Any questions?
What is L?
Yeah?
L means?
L means the length. The length of the chord which is occupied, it is basically the length of the chord which is occupied by the gas phase and the length of the chord which is occupied by the liquid phase. Okay, because along the entire chord the entire thing cannot be filled of liquid or the entire length cannot be filled with the gas when the two phases are flowing, isn't it? Some portion will be filled with the gas phase, some portion will be filled with the liquid phase, isn't it? Now, when it is completely filled with the liquid phase, we know that the amount of light which has been transmitted. When it is completely filled by the gas phase, we know the amount that is transmitted. Agreed? Now, when say 50% or maybe 30% of the length of the chord, if it is occupied by the liquid phase, we measure the amount which is transmitted, and then from there we estimate what is the length of the chord which is occupied by the gas phase or the liquid phase. Okay. So, therefore, just like area average, we find out the cross sectional area occupied by the gas phase or phase 2, the cross sectional area occupied by phase 1, In the same way, in this particular case, we find out the length of the chord which we have selected, the length of the chord which is occupied by the gas phase or phase 2 and the length of the chord which is occupied by the liquid phase or phase 1. Okay. Now, apart from, so what are the different things that we measured? We measured, or rather we defined the volume average liquid hold up. Usually we will be talking in terms of hold up and not void fraction, because if we talk about hold up, even for liquid system, it just refers to the volumetric composition of the heavier liquid. Okay. Even when we are talking about liquid solid applications, it refers to the volume fraction of the liquid phase. Okay. So, therefore, usually we will be referring to the liquid hold up instead of the void fraction for two phase flow situations. Okay. So, therefore, first we define the volume average hold up, next we define the area average hold up, next the chordal average hold up, and finally, suppose I tell you that I would like to measure the void fraction or the composition at a particular point. Okay. Then under that case, what should I call it? Should it be a point average liquid hold up? What should it be? If I consider a point, then can there be a fraction of the point which is occupied by the gas phase, fraction of the point which is occupied by the liquid phase? That particular point will either have only gas or it will be occupied by only liquid. The thing which might happen is we can consider the time, maybe we take a total time of measurement, and among that time, how much of the time the point was occupied by the gas phase, how much of the time the point was occupied by the liquid phase. So, if we measure it at a particular point, we can do it. There are several techniques, maybe conductivity probes can be used, certain radiation scattering techniques can be used, and so on. So, under those circumstances, we get the time average void fraction, and measuring the time average void fraction, it is very important. Why? What we can do, we can measure the time average void fraction, and we can, if we do it at different points, then in that case we can get actually the voidage profile, how we can find out how the voids are distributed in the cross section. Do you get my point? Till now, whatever measurements we were doing, we were just getting the average composition across a particular section of the test passage, isn't it? We were not concentrating, or we were not in a position to find out how this average value is distributed across that particular section. But remember one thing, it is very important to know the average composition, but at the same time it is also important to know how this particular phases are distributed. For example, suppose you want a mass transfer operation or a chemical reaction. Okay. So, therefore, definitely suppose towards the center of the pipe, maybe it is bubbly flow, we have more bubbles, towards the wall we have less bubbles. So, therefore, where will the reaction be fastest? It will be, suppose it is a gas phase controlled reaction, it will occur, or rather more amount of the reaction will occur in the center, very less reaction or mass transfer is going to occur towards the walls. We would like to ensure a very uniform distribution, or in other words, we would like to ensure that maybe either we would like to ensure that the mass transfer occurs uniformly throughout, or we would like to find out where the conversion or the mass transfer is maximum, and then we can incorporate that in our mathematical models. So, therefore, it is not always sufficient to know the average composition, it is also very important to know the profile of distribution of the two phases, because if we adjust, if we can manipulate, if we can play with the distribution, maybe we can get enhanced recovery or our enhanced product which we want. Okay. So, apart from these average values, it is very important to know the time average void fraction, which we can find out by noting the void fractions, or rather by noting the in situ compositions at different points across a particular cross section. So, this gives us the next definition, which is the time average liquid hold up. Okay. So, this particular thing, this is usually defined as integral dt T1 by integral T1 plus T2 dt, or in other words it is better defined as, because we cannot measure your infinitesimal quantities of time. So, therefore, this is better defined as 1 by delta t, where t is the total time of measurement, total time of experiments. Okay. So, therefore, 1 by t sigma t equals to 1 to n delta t L. Okay. Or in other words, this gives you, this is I equals to 1 to n delta T L. Okay. Or in other words, this gives you delta T L by delta T, the total time of experiments. So, therefore, what does it give you? It gives you that suppose you have taken experiments, or rather you have performed the experiment for say 3 minutes. Out of that 3 minutes, see, when you are measuring at a point, what you find, it is either going to give you a 0 void fraction or unit void fraction. Okay. Ideally, this is the ideal condition, but under experimental conditions you will find that the change is not so very instantaneous. Okay. But ideally, what you should get some sort of a square wave sort of a thing, where this gives you say H L equals to 0, this gives you say H L equal to 1. Okay. So, you take the measurements over this entire particular time, this gives you the total time of measurement. Out of that you find out for how long this H L was equal to 1. Okay. So, this fraction, this particular time divided by the total time gives you the time average void fraction, and if you know this particular, say you know the time average void fraction at each and every point. So, from there you can find out the voidage profile or the distribution of the voids, and accordingly you can play with it, or you can control it and you can manipulate it, or you can at least have an idea of what it is, so that you can incorporate, if cannot do anything with it, you can at least incorporate it in your models. Okay. Definitely, if it is a parabolic sort of a profile and you assume a flat profile, then definitely your results are not going to be accurate. Okay. So, therefore, remember one thing, for after this, whenever I refer to the liquid hold up or the void fraction or the solid loading, whatever it is, I will be meaning the volume average value. But remember one thing, apart from the volume average value, just because it is not always possible to measure the volume average value. So, therefore, we have other definitions like the area average, the caudal average, and of course, the time average void fraction. Okay. But we always have to convert it to the volume average value or the area average value, and it is the area average or the volume average which gives us the actual volumetric, actual in situ composition of the two phase mixture. Usually area average and volume average we take as constant, because we assume that it does not vary with length, but when it varies with length, then definitely they cannot be considered as equal. For adiabatic fully developed flow conditions, we assume both of them to be equal. Okay. So, this was our definitions regarding the different types of hold up definitions which we can use. Now, we will be going for the other definitions which are left. Now, as whenever we do any particular analysis, what we have to do? We have to first select coordinates. Okay. X, Y, Z are the common Cartesian coordinates we use. Remember, in this particular case we have already used x for quality. Okay. So, therefore, for our particular case what we shall be doing is the coordinate in the direction of flow. So, suppose flow is occurring in this particular direction, the coordinate in the direction of flow will be taken as the z coordinate. Okay. And from the axis, suppose it is circular pipe, from the axis we take the coordinate as r. Okay. So, along the direction of flow, along the axis of the conduit, we take z is used as the coordinate, and the radial distance from the axis of the pipe, it is usually r. Okay. And we use y when we have to measure the distance either from any particular boundary. So, suppose from the surface if we have to measure the distance, or maybe there is an interface, from the interface we have to measure the distance, then in that case we use y. This is the usual coordinate system. If you want, you can refer to the coordinate in the direction of flow as x, as you are used to doing, but just to avoid unnecessary confusions, I would like to specify this particular portion. Okay. So, that in the direction of flow it is z, and maybe perpendicular to the direction of flow from the tube axis, in any particular tube we take it as the radial coordinate r. Usually y is taken as the distance from any particular boundary, it can be an interface, it can be the solid wall, whatever it is, distance from there is taken as y. The other thing is rate of change of static pressure with distance. Since this is the z direction, so the rate of change of static pressure with distance is naturally equals to dp dz, isn't it? So, therefore, you must have noticed initially also when I did the momentum equation derivation for single phase and two phase, I had referred to as dp dz. Okay. So, the reason is simply this and nothing else. Okay. So, we mention the rate of change of static pressure with distance as dp dz. Okay. Now, naturally positive values, they will denote a rise of pressure with axial distance, isn't it? Whenever we have a positive value, this shows pressure increase in the direction of flow, but always we are used to, we know that the pressure falls in the direction of flow. So, therefore, usually the pressure gradient is denoted as minus dp dz. Okay. Now, we knew that minus dp dz, this was equal to the, for single phase flow, this is usually equal to, it comprises of the gravitational pressure gradient and the frictional pressure gradient. Okay. For adiabatic equilibrium flows, this you have already derived, you know it, for adiabatic equilibrium flows, and this is equal to the gravitational pressure gradient, the frictional pressure gradient, as well as the acceleration pressure gradient comes into being when we have heated tubes, and under that circumstances what happens? Under that circumstances, either the liquid goes into the vapor phase or the vapor comes to the liquid phase. Under that circumstance, naturally one of the phases, some portion of it is either accelerated or decelerated. So, therefore, for such situations we have the acceleration pressure gradient. We also have, but whenever we are having heated tubes accompanied by phase changes, it is no longer a single phase flow situation, isn't it? So, therefore, for heated tubes with phase change, we have this acceleration pressure gradient, but under that circumstances it is no longer a single phase flow situation. Or we can also have this acceleration pressure gradient when there is any way to accelerate the flow. We can accelerate the flow by change of phase, definitely. There is one other way to accelerate the flow, change in cross sectional area. So, we can have this for heated tubes, or for expansions, contractions, etc. we can have this acceleration pressure gradient. But under normal circumstances, for flow in pipes, for adiabatic equilibrium conditions, for single phase flow situations, this is the expression of the pressure gradient. And for two phase flow, whether it is adiabatic equilibrium or whether it is accompanied by heat transfer, the expression of pressure gradient is always given, it always comprises of the three components for all circumstances. For adiabatic equilibrium flows, heated tubes with phase change as well as change in conduit cross section. For all such cases, okay, we do have an acceleration pressure gradient. Fine, but what will be the expression of this acceleration pressure gradient, how many terms it will comprise of, that will depend on what are the factors which contribute to the acceleration pressure gradient. If there is an area change accompanied by a heat transfer, definitely it will comprise of the requisite number of terms. Under normal circumstances, it will just have one particular term. Why it will have that term? Because it is expected that when it is flowing, at least if one of the phases is compressible like the gas phase, then definitely with pressure the specific volume of the gas phase is going to change. So, as a result some sort of acceleration will be there, but under normal circumstances if the pipe length is not very large, we can neglect the acceleration pressure gradient. But if in any problem during your exam you are neglecting the acceleration pressure gradient, and at the end you have to calculate the pressure gradient and show that it is negligible compared to the total pressure gradient. It is less than say 10% or 5%, that is why you have neglected it in calculating the total pressure gradient. Okay, as engineers we would not be very much concerned regarding the exactness or the high accuracy of the results. We would just like to get a more or less accurate results with not much of computational efforts. So, therefore, you are neglecting it, but you have to show under that circumstances that the acceleration pressure gradient was not more than 10% or 5%, whatever it is. Okay. The other thing is, apart from pressure gradient, as engineers we are also interested to find out the pressure drop. Okay. And the pressure drop, it's quite evident, this is nothing but maybe integral 0 to L dP dz dl. So, just remember that the pressure drop and the pressure gradient, they have the opposite signs. This you already know, but this was just to remind you that this is the thing that we usually refer to. Agreed? Well, after this there are certain other terms which I would like to refer to, or rather which I would like to discuss. We will not be using them very frequently, but for certain simple analytical analysis we will be using them. In the last class I had defined, apart from mass flux, heat flux, I had defined something like the volumetric flux. Remember? How do we define the volume flux? It is just, it's small j, it is just the volumetric flow rate divided by the area. Okay? I had already defined it. Now, in this particular case, this was fine for single phase flows. Okay? Now, for two phase flow, what do we get? We have a J1, just like G1, this is equal to Q1 by A. We have a J2, and we know the mixture volumetric flux, it is nothing but J1 plus J2. Agreed? Now, remember one thing, whenever I refer to this particular volume fluxes, I assume that the total volumetric flow rate does not change across the cross sectional area, isn't it? Remember, so we assume that the volume flux is the area average volume. Under normal circumstances, this should be this type. So, therefore, so actually we are referring to the area average volume fluxes. Okay? So, therefore, it is, but under normal circumstances we assume that the volume flux, when normal circumstances we assume that they are more or less constant with area, and therefore, we do not put this particular averaging signs. Okay. But when we are just writing J, J1, J2, we assume that they are just the area average values. Okay. So, please remember this. Achha, after the, and one more thing I had expected this question from you. If you see the definitions, you are going to find that they are similar to the definitions of superficial velocity, isn't it? So, therefore, you can always ask me what was the need of defining volumetric flux and superficial velocity. Now, here remember one thing, when we are considering one dimensional steady state flow situations, both of them are the same. Okay? But in reality, volumetric flux, it is a vector quantity. Okay? It is a vector quantity, and for the present situation, it will be used exclusively to refer to the scalar component of flow. So, under the present circumstances, volumetric flux and superficial velocity, they have the same mathematical expression, but they do not have the same definition. Remember, superficial velocity was the velocity which the fluid would have had it flowed alone in the pipe, right? And volumetric flux is simply the volumetric flow rate divided by the total area. So, by definition, if you find, you will find that these definitions, by definition they are not the same, and volumetric flux is a vector quantity, but for the present situation it will be used exclusively to represent the scalar component in the direction of motion along the pipe. And therefore, under such conditions, it is numerically equal to the superficial velocity of the individual phase. But the basic definitions are different. They can be used interchangeably when temporal and cross sectional variations across the flow are ignored. Please remember that J1 equals to U1s, J2 equals to U2s. This can be used only when temporal and cross sectional variations across the flow are neglected. Otherwise, we cannot use it. For this one dimensional two phase flow, under that circumstances, then how can we relate J1, J2 with the in situ velocities? Okay. So, for one dimensional two phase flow, we find one dimensional two phase flow, the volumetric fluxes of the individual components can be related to the local component concentration and the local velocity. In what way? This is equal to 1 minus alpha into u1 and this is equal to alpha into u2. Isn't it? Agreed? Yes or no? Anybody who wants me to repeat this part? Yeah? What is Q1 equal to? From the basic definition which I have shown, Q1 equals to J1 into A. Fine. This is equal to, this is equal to U1 into A1. Agreed? What is A1? U1 A into 1 minus alpha. So, therefore, J1 equals to U1 into 1 minus alpha. Agreed? Same way J2 equals to U2 into alpha. Fine. So, therefore, your the volumetric fluxes, they can be related to the local component concentration and the velocity by these particular relationships for one dimensional two phase flow, and the total local flux, as I have already mentioned, the total local flux can be expressed by this particular expression. Okay. So, from here we can get to Q1, as I have told you, it is J1 dA integral, Q2 it is integral J2 dA. So, therefore, when J1 and J2 they vary across the cross section, when we are not considering one dimensional flows, then in that case this integral signs have to be given, and the variation of J1 and J2 with area have to be incorporated in this mathematical expressions, and if J1 and J2 do not vary with cross section, then it is J1A and J2A. Okay. So, we will be continuing with a small amount of discussion which is left. After that, tomorrow we are going to, after this we are going to consider the simple analytical models, and then after that we shall be taking up the simplest analytical model, the homogeneous flow model, and we will be analyzing two phase flows using that particular model. Thank you very much.